What kamba manga, what kamba manga, usul kamba manga, what kamba manga, usul kamba manga, wankambela manga, ufuna ukungilahlisa ithemba lami. Wankambela manga, ufuna ukungilahlisa. This album is very interesting for me because it's taken me back to 1979, where when I first heard Zulu street guitar music, I heard Irish folk music. I was 14 and I was stunned because I was hearing 6/8 rhythms, I was hearing fifth harmonies, and I was hearing minor modes, minor modalities. It's just the language was different, and that intrigued me. So when I first approached a street musician to teach me, I saw immediately the guitar was tuned differently, or weirdly, you know, and it was played differently. And I was really, really thrilled because it was like a real discovery, and I started to learn. And the more I learned the music, the less it sounded like Irish folk music. You know, that was like an entry point for me into Zulu music. The album is called Heat, Dust and Dreams, and it's really it's like three words which are paradox for me, which kind of sum up the problem of change. You know, heat is the social friction, the personal friction in everybody's life. In any time of change, you've got to deal with these problems. Dreams is all the various alternative images that you might have about where you could go and what you can do. And dust, those things that never change, the eternal things. You know, even in the most crazy, bizarre, anarchic, chaotic situations, you know, you're still having a fight with your mother-in-law, and you still have to go feed the chickens or whatever it is, you know. All the ghettos, all the favelas in South America, all the townships where you have the most extreme poverty and the most extreme and dehumanizing conditions. And music is the happiest music. It really is happy music. And the function of the music is to humanize you. It says to you, step inside me, I'll make you whole again, I'll make you feel good. And you'll be able to leave and, you know, face the day.
Outside, there's a whole world changing. We can't stand here trapped inside. Let's step out and test the weather. Hold on, baby, it's gonna be a rough ride.
I write in Zulu and English, and I usually, if the song is completely in Zulu, then the chorus will at some point be in English, and if the song tends to be in English, the chorus will be in Zulu. I try and in each language to condense the meaning of the song into an idiom or a proverb or an expression, so that even if you don't understand English and you Zulu and you hear XYZ in the middle of the song, say, ah, the song is about buying shoes in the shop, I know, you know, whatever.
These days, I'm searching for a vision. These days, of gunmetal blue. These days, I'll be changing my religion. These days, so heartless and cruel.
These days is really saying, you know, there's blood in the heavens, and we have to get the energy to keep on going. It's not good enough to simply get married and have kids, etc. You've got to, you know, we have to find a different way. We used to talk about changing the world, but now all you want to do is change your name, which is kind of sums up the disillusionment of a lot of young people with politics, with the kind of alternatives that are offered to young people to deal with the world's problems. Because I think young people feel very, very paralyzed sometimes when they are given a lot of the world's problems are put at their feet. They say, you young, you've got the energy, you've got the vision, dream, come on, we're old, we've really stuffed up the planet and we've stuffed up the society, and it's the young people now who have to come in with the new ideas. But the way the planet has been, and a lot of societies have been damaged, is so profound, and the tools and the equipment that young people have to deal with this is not there.
Could you?
South Africans are very innocent, and that's why, in a sense, they are so violent. There's something in the violence as well which is very innocent. It's not. I'm talking about the citizenry of the country. There's, on one day you can go through Alexandra Township, and it's a great feeling. It's a great atmosphere. People in the streets, kids are playing and pushing their little wired cars around, and you talk to them, and you go and have a drink in a shebeen. You go into a shop and buy some whatever, and speak to some of the taxi drivers and some of the mamas selling vegetables in the market square, and it's just a great vibe. And then the next day you can go through the same place, and there's just this all-pervading atmosphere of violence. Really, it's tangible.
Chopper standing in the clearing, fueled and ready to ride. Captain in the doorway, telling us to step inside. Last minute check, all weapons set, parachutes and night sight. Gonna drop in on the jungle, grease some Stone Age tribe. The Sarge jokes about taking out the last links to his troubled past.
When I was at university in the early 70s, one or two individuals came through the university and left. They'd come out of the Bush War in Namibia and Angola. And we heard a lot of really crazy stories about what was going on down there. But there was this constant theme of military assassination, people getting into helicopters, crossing the border, going into a tribal village, shooting supporters of the enemy, whatever it is. And it really damaged these young men. And when they got to university, they were in an environment that was hostile to them, hostile to what they'd done, hostile to even to their confusion. And I think I had a bit of a broader perspective in a way, because I didn't feel sorry for them, but I felt that they should have at least been given a chance to go through a kind of a soldier's progress. And that's what the song Inevitable Consequence of Progress is about. It's about a soldier who goes on his first secret combat mission to wipe out a tribe of people. We don't know why, but it's a secret. Don't even tell the listener. And as they're going through this process, he says to the sergeant looks at him, and the sergeant senses that this young kid is going through a bit of a turmoil. And he says to him, you know, what you must realize is that these people have no place in a modern world. They are being discarded by history. And it's the inevitable consequence of progress that you are the instrument of their demise. And you don't have to be accountable in any way to yourself or to your God for what you're doing. This is it's a natural law of progress. And they go in and they do the job, and he's completely devastated because these tribesmen are shooting arrows at the ship, and which brings out the stark contrast of the technological superiority of the one group over the other. And he comes home, and he's now in a basically a mental depression, and he goes through a period of kind of inner percolation of all these feelings and stuff, and he comes out with a very simple message, which is live and let live. We came off a 9-month world tour in 1990, and we decided to take a break. My country, South Africa, was going through quite a transition, and during that period, one of the members of the band, Dulu Zulu, was assassinated, and it kind of threw things into a bit of a negative spiral, because this was during the recording of the middle of recording of the recent album. This, together with a bunch of other events that took place amongst my community, the Zulu community, including the community itself sort of splitting down the middle, being politically divided, really put a lot of pressure on me, as you know, I had friends on both sides. So it affected some of the songs, some of the feelings that came out. But I made a very strong attempt to keep the album very very positive, very hopeful.
Through all the days that eat away at every breath that I take, through all the nights I have lain alone in someone else's dream awake, all the words in truth that were spoken that the wind has blown away. Oh, it's only you that remains with me, clear as the light of day. Osieza, sizofika where Baba noma. Osieza, siyakudla nomhlaba, siyawela ngaphesheya kulezo ntaba zemnyama.
I flew home for the burial, and we went to the mortuary, and we took the body. It was in a very rural area. We had to wash the body, and even in death he looked like a real prince. And we put him into his coffin, and just being with the community and being with these people who live in a land that's just made up of stones. They live a very tough life, rural, agricultural, peasant community. And it was the funeral was the whole day long, basically, from the sort of late morning right through to the early afternoon. And being with his entire, the huge support system around there, and seeing how the death was treated, and being involved in it, and also having to talk, I had a good cry, and I actually felt that the event was like a rite of passage for me. I'd lost a friend, and something is irrevocably lost in the band, and in as a dancing partner of, I've been working with him for 13 years. And as a guy in the band, he was an incredible mediator in the band. He really understood human beings and motivations, and he used to call band meetings the moment he sensed any problems between anybody. And all that's gone, but watching how the people dealt with it and spoke about him, I really felt good. I felt it was a very tragic event, but at the same time, the community came around and gave everybody a springboard to bounce back and keep going.
A punch-drunk man in a downtown bar takes a beating without making a sound. Through swollen eyes, he sways and he smiles, 'cause no one can put him down. Inside him a boy looks up to his father for a sign or an approving eye. Oh, it's funny how those once so close are now gone, still so affect our lives. Oh, see, yes, I'm coming. Oh, see, yes, I'll be coming. So figure where mama no man. You know the tide is turning. Oh, see, yes, oh, see, yes. You know the tide is turning. Make my crossing over the stark land. Gonna touch your face. Gonna lay me down.
Well, the crossing, very briefly, is dedicated to Dudu Ndlovu, and it's called the crossing because it's about his crossing over to the other side. But contained also in the sense of the crossing is that we're all crossing. In my country, we're crossing from an old order to a new order. And in the rest of the planet, we're crossing from the 90s decade into the year 2000, which we hope is going to bring us a more democratic and humane society. So those themes in the Zulu chorus, it says, Osieza, Osieza, we are coming, we are coming. Sizofika we baba no mama, we will arrive, mom and dad, we'll see you. Siyawela la pesheya, we are crossing far into the distance. Gulezo ntaba zimnyama, to beyond by those very dark mountains. And when we get to the other side, we can't actually go straight. It's too difficult to go straight. This is a typical kind of African expression. It says when something's difficult, you can't go straight. You have to go around. So it says siyagudla lo mhlaba. We can't go straight across the planet. We have to go around the planet to get to where we're going. And when we get to the other side, we will say farewell to all our tribulations, all our fears, and all the dark things that have troubled us.
Take me now. Don't let go. Hold me close. I'm coming home. Oh, see, yes. Oh, I'm coming. Oh, see, yes. Oh, I'm coming. You know the tide is turning. Oh, see, yes. I'm telling you the tide is turning.
I did politics at university, and so I have a natural interest. I keep up, you know, as much as I can with political developments, but I'm not really a political analyst, and I try not to get involved in that level because I think it's valid, but I think it doesn't give the man in the street a sense of life, or the quality, the everyday life world of, you know, a migrant peasant who's come to Johannesburg for the first time, has no education, or, you know, a white 30-year-old guy who's got an MBA degree, and he's just starting off. You know, he started off his career in 1988 in some big corporation, and 2 years down the line, the country's in a mess. He feels betrayed. He feels he doesn't have a career anymore. What is his sensibility? You don't get that. You don't get this, you know, and that's, for me, very important to communicate.
Electric chair didn't burn her hair, and the newspaper man asked why. While the warden explained in great detail, the newsman looked to the sky. I'm sure he said, if you look a little deeper,
I've become a lot more global in my perspective and in my music particularly. On the album, for instance, we have a song called The Promise. While we were recording in America, there was this huge event. They electrocuted 2 guys who had been on appeal for 10 years. And California, the Supreme Court decided that that was it. You know, they were not going to have their appeal. So for 2 weeks, of course, this was intensely mediatized, you know, all the media, the papers, and later on public television, they had a documentary with all the parents and friends, etc., of a bunch of young guys who were now serving like 3 life sentences for similar kinds of crimes. And they were trying to look at the family backgrounds of these people and to see if there was any kind of correlation between the way, you know, their childhood experiences and the way they turned out. And there was basically, you know, a good many of them who had incredibly troubled childhoods and very traumatic and tragic experiences as children. But there was one mother who was stunning, because she was asked by the reporter, was there anything in your little boy's behavior, you know, that you could have said, that's a bit strange, you know. And she said, no, he was incredible. He was sensitive, creative, lots of friends. He whistled, he played, chewed gum. He was a good sports person. You know, he was incredible. He just left when he was 18 and he went away and he changed. And we don't know who he is, but we know who he was. And that's the person we choose to remember. And I was deeply affected by this, and it was I switched to the TV. I remember I sat down and I wrote just a line, "What happened to the promise?" which became the chorus of the song. And I have a son, and it's often, you know, I often think at times when I've been either gave him a spanking or something for something that, and I've regretted it later. I've always come back to thinking, have I scarred him in some way? You know, it's the perennial problem of a parent, and just listening to her talking and listening to the way she interpreted this whole thing. She blamed time. She says, you know, time corrupts. These beautiful little things grow, and they move away, and they become individuals of their own, with their own motivations, their own intentions, their own beliefs, their own values. And we tried, and I still love him, but I don't know who he is. And so the story in the song is, a lot of the songs are stories on the album. They're just small little pieces. It's stories of journalists who's watching an electrocution, because that's what they do. They sit and they watch it, you know. And he decides that he wants to find out about this person. And he goes to this little town, this country town, and he speaks to everybody. He tries to get this profile of this man when he was a boy. And he can't figure it out, because they say that this kid was great, just like she said her son was. You know, I used the same kind of idea. And in the end, he goes back to the mother, and the mother says to him, some of them make it through, some of them never do. One of them got lost in time, that child of mine. I really love that child of mine. And he's constantly worried by this problem of the promise. Every child born is a promise. It's an infinite promise to the world. And how that promise is fulfilled is the great mystery. We don't know. We don't know. You know, there is no answer. You know, you have the cliched, you know, genetic argument versus environment. You have all those other, but there is something higher than that. There is something greater than that. There's something in the person, and there's something in time and in circumstance that when they meet, there's a very unique alchemy between the two, which we can never explain. And I think it's what you call freedom.
He spoke to the mother and the father and a friend and a teacher and a preacher man. They all recalled the regular boy chewing gum, playing in the sand. And nothing could explain how he became a lonely lightning man. Oh, what happened to the promise? Oh, what happened to the one we knew? And when the coffin came on the southbound train in the old...
I have a sense that the notion of love has changed somewhat amongst young people. I think it's very instrumental. It's a tool. It's a weapon. I see a lot of, you know, it's a power game. It's a, you know, and so on the album there's 2 or 3 songs that deal with this and say it's more than that. In fact, it's not that. There's something more to it than that. And if you discover that, then you discover a platform on which to really change the world. And it comes from a very personal experience. It comes from something that you discover. It's your discovery. It's got nothing to do with anybody else. It's very magical and it's yours. It's an adventure. And if you find that thing, you will have a shield and a platform to do many, many things.
You were the reason I came here. You will always be the one I'm looking for.